On the evening of April 18, 2021, at around 7:40 p.m., an Australian man named Mitch Cooney was driving along the Hume Highway near Bardia. He had just left a racing event and was heading back home to Gold Coast. The drive seemed ordinary until, without warning, something startling appeared ahead. Standing in the middle of the road was a figure that looked like a young child. The figure wore a blue parka and seemed to be trying to cross the highway. At that moment, Mitch was driving close to 60 miles per hour, about 96 km/h, while towing a large toy hauler. Slamming on the brakes or swerving could have caused a catastrophic accident. With no real choice, Mitch held his course, and his vehicle passed the figure by only a hair's breadth. Shaken, Mitch's mother, who was riding with him, immediately phoned the police to report what looked like a child wandering a major highway. Authorities assured them that patrols were being sent to investigate, but the strange encounter lingered in Mitch's mind. Less than an hour later, at 8:29 p.m., he called the police again, offering dashcam footage of what he had seen. To his surprise, he was told that officers had already located a child matching the description and were returning him safely home. Relieved, Mitch even posted on Facebook later that night. He had felt sick to his stomach during the ordeal, but hearing the child was safe brought him immense relief. Yet the story took a bizarre turn. After uploading the dashcam clip online, Mitch's experience gained attention, and soon the New South Wales police publicly contradicted the account he had been given. Officials stated that no child had been found that night. According to their official report, multiple patrols had searched the area until 3:45 a.m. without discovering anything. Why then had Mitch been told otherwise? Perhaps it was a miscommunication, or an operator who didn't have the facts gave an inaccurate update. Still, the bigger mystery remained. If no child was ever found, who or what did Mitch nearly hit? Was it truly a lost child later retrieved by someone else, a case of abduction, or something stranger entirely? To this day, the incident remains unexplained. In the early hours of May 8, 2021, around 2:30 a.m., TikToker Malie Perales, known online as Pissed Pasta, was driving home with her roommates and friends after a night out. The group was heading down Packer Drive northeast, a road that runs along the Rogue River in Belmont, Michigan. What should have been a normal ride turned into something deeply unsettling. Out of the darkness, one of them spotted a strange figure crawling onto the road. After debating whether they had really seen something, the group decided to circle back for a closer look. This time, the figure was unmistakable. It was a young woman, possibly in her 20s or 30s, sitting in the middle of the road. She appeared either to be waving for help or striking her own head. Even more disturbing, she was drenched from head to toe despite the chilly 48-degree, 9-degree weather. The friends turned around once more, only to see her collapse fully onto the pavement. At that point, it was clear the woman needed urgent help, but there was also the possibility of it being a staged robbery. Playing it safe, Malie called 911 rather than leaving the car. Police and first responders soon arrived and rushed the woman to a nearby hospital. Later, when Malie returned to the spot, the pavement was still wet from water dripping off the woman's clothes. She also noticed digging marks in the mud near the riverbank, suggesting that the woman had just climbed out of the water before being found. Police eventually located her car parked behind a nearby house, supporting the theory that she had fallen, or jumped, into the river and managed to swim across. Local residents on Facebook reported that they had encountered the same woman earlier that night. One neighbor recalled asking her if she needed help around 10:15 p.m., only to hear a flat no. Another claimed she had walked straight into someone's home shouting hello several times before leaving and wandering into their backyard. In the days that followed, the woman recovered enough to identify herself as May, a 28-year-old Chinese student from Kalamazoo, over 60 miles away. Strangely, she had no memory of how or why she had driven to Belmont. Friends later confirmed that before her disappearance on May 6th, May had confided she felt like someone was stalking her. This detail sparked speculation that she had been abducted and thrown into the river, but police evidence suggested she had driven herself there. A more plausible explanation was that the constant stress of feeling watched had triggered a dissociative fugue state, a rare psychological condition in which a person loses their sense of identity, wanders aimlessly, and later recalls nothing of the experience. In May's case, she may have drifted for days, disoriented, until eventually falling into the river. Luckily, she regained enough awareness to swim ashore and survive. On the night of October 12, 2016, a family in Sheffield, England, spent the evening at the Drawbridge pub enjoying food, drinks, and laughter. Around midnight, they set out for home. The roads at that hour were nearly deserted, so the driver was already wary of the possibility of criminals lurking in the dark. Still, nothing could have prepared them for what happened only minutes later. As their car rounded a bend onto Grange Mill Lane, a man in a clown costume suddenly jumped from the shadows and stood directly in their path. He waved his arms, forcing the driver to stop, then immediately began running toward the vehicle while still blocking the way forward. Alarmed, the driver attempted to reverse and escape, but the clown sprinted after them at full speed. To many, such an encounter might have seemed like a prank or a viral video stunt, especially in 2016 when killer clown sightings were trending online. But in Sheffield at that time, the situation was far from harmless. Just 3 nights earlier, on October 9th, a man named Simon Chinnery had been attacked in public by someone dressed as a clown and armed with a knife. Though he survived, Simon's right hand was slashed repeatedly and left permanently disfigured. The case sparked nationwide panic and a wave of imitators. Police across the UK began receiving dozens of daily reports of clowns threatening people, blocking cars, and even chasing women and children with weapons. With that in mind, the family in the car had every reason to fear the worst. As the clown continued to charge toward them, the driver had no choice but to floor the accelerator. The vehicle shot forward, and at the very last moment, the clown leapt out of the way. The close call could easily have ended in tragedy, either for the clown if he had reacted a second too late, or for the family, had they been forced to stop and face whatever intentions he had. On the night of June 2, 2018, an officer from the Fulshear Police Department in Texas was driving back to the station after his shift. Up ahead, he noticed the car in front of him suddenly swerve into the opposite lane, narrowly avoiding something in the road. At first glance, the officer expected to see an animal or debris. Instead, what lay across the asphalt was far more alarming. A young woman, stretched out horizontally, completely motionless. From a distance, she looked dead, or at the very least, unconscious. The disturbing scene raised the worst possibilities. Could this have been a body dumped after a crime? Or someone who had just been struck in a hit and run? Approaching carefully, the officer discovered that the woman was still alive. In fact, she suddenly stood up on her own, though her behavior was erratic and disoriented. Further investigation revealed that only minutes earlier, she had crashed her vehicle into a ditch beside the road. Later tests showed her blood alcohol concentration was extremely high. The combination of intoxication and head trauma from the crash had left her acting irrationally, leading her to wander into the road and lie down without a thought for her own safety. It was sheer luck that the driver ahead had spotted her in time and swerved, and that the officer had been right behind to intervene. Otherwise, she might have ended up as yet another tragic reminder of the dangers of driving under the influence. On the night of February 26, 1946, 25-year-old Kinney Jimmy Hollis and his girlfriend, Mary Jean, were driving home from a movie in Texarkana, Texas. Before reaching the city limits, Jimmy pulled over on a secluded stretch of road so the couple could spend a little extra time together. They had no idea that decision would nearly cost them their lives. After about 10 minutes, a man emerged from the nearby woods. His face was hidden beneath a white sack or pillowcase, with 2 crude eye holes cut out. Without warning, he ordered Jimmy out of the car. At first, Jimmy assumed it was some kind of prank, until the masked stranger pulled out a gun and said flatly, "I don't want to kill you, fella. Just do what I say." Jimmy obeyed, but as soon as he stepped out, the attacker struck him in the head with the weapon, knocking him unconscious. Mary tried to flee into the woods, but the man caught her and assaulted her as well. Fortunately, the sight of headlights approaching on the road scared him off, and he disappeared into the darkness. Both victims managed to get help. Mary ran to the nearest house while Jimmy flagged down a passing car. At the hospital, doctors found that Jimmy's skull had been fractured in several places, though he miraculously survived. When questioned, Jimmy and Mary both described the attacker as tall and slender, around 6 feet, but disagreed on his ethnicity. Jimmy insisted he was white, while Mary was convinced he was black. This inconsistency, combined with the random nature of the attack, led some investigators to wrongly suspect the couple knew the assailant. Just weeks later, the situation escalated. On March 24th, a driver discovered the bodies of Richard Griffin and his girlfriend, Polly Ann Moore, in a parked car. Both had been shot in the head, and only a .32 caliber cartridge was left behind. On April 14th, another couple was killed in similar fashion, linking the crimes together. Panic swept through Texarkana. Residents avoided driving at night, and the mysterious figure earned the nickname the Phantom Killer, or the Texarkana Phantom. Despite FBI involvement, the killer proved impossible to track. He seemed to vanish after each attack. Eventually, suspicion fell on a man named Ewell Swinney, a repeat car thief whose height and build matched witness descriptions. When police tried to arrest him for stealing a car, he reportedly said something that implied guilt. "You want me for more than stealing cars." But investigators lacked direct evidence connecting him to the murders. Although Swinney was sentenced to life in prison for his third felony theft charge, he denied involvement in the Phantom crimes until his death in 1994. To this day, the Texarkana Phantom remains one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. On the night of January 8, 2024, a long-haul truck driver was making his way along a remote stretch of highway in Western Australia. It was close to 11 p.m., and the road was empty, until he witnessed something that would stay with him forever. Roughly 62 miles south of Perth, two figures suddenly appeared ahead of his headlights. They seemed to be dragging something large across the road. The driver had only seconds to react. He swerved dangerously to avoid them, nearly losing control of his vehicle. But when he finally stopped and looked back, both figures and the object had vanished into the darkness. Dashcam footage later revealed unsettling details. Frame by frame, it looked as though the pair were pulling what resembled human legs, wearing shorts and black shoes, across the highway. The implication was chilling. Were they moving a body? But in motion, the object looked less clear. Some suggested it could have been an animal, or even something like a large mannequin or plush doll. Still, its proportions appeared disturbingly human. The question remains, why would two people be dragging anything across a deserted highway at night, let alone something that looked like a body? With no answers and the figures vanishing without a trace, the mystery of that night remains unsolved.